Welcome, Jeanie.
Hey, thank you, Dr. Tim. I appreciate it.
You're welcome and deserving. Have a wonderful show.
Thank you. So welcome, everybody, to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio. And today is Wednesday, July the 5th, 2023. And our call-in number is 563-999-3581. And press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us. And we'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. And I heard Susan say she was going to talk during the second hour, so I'm going to go ahead and turn your microphone back on. And Michael is dialing in right now. So how are you doing?
I'm doing really well, thanks. Energy is still here.
Welcome.
Good.
Hey. I did 4 wake-up sheets, which isn't a huge amount, but boy, they were good. And the radio shows, both of them, Dr. Tim's and yours, were just a huge help yesterday. So, I think
Anything to share about your worksheets?
Sure. I mean, I don't know how interesting it is to go, but it all, there's one place in one of the, I think it's the Walzak worksheet. He says, is this a familiar feeling? Is this the first time I have felt this feeling? Every feeling is something I have felt before, either in utero or from ages 1 through 8. And that was a wonderful door opener because I thought, okay, good. I don't have to think about last month or a year ago. I'm going to go to that early time. And then there it all was, the whole deal. I've told you much about this before. I have a younger sister who has been dependent. Tim's been paying her rent for years. Before that, she lived on an IRA that my mother set up, never believing that my sister would live as long as she's living, and the IRA ran out about 10 years ago. My sister has been in poor health. A lot of it is due to poor choices she made. And I have been so angry at her for so long and not looking at it, so intolerant and judgmental. To this day, I can tell the stories and work up my dander, and feel like strangling her, but she's the one I've been wanting to strangle my whole life. And our person in the house is a lot like her in some ways. So it's much more convenient to put all the stuff on him and not face the real issue. So the wake-up sheets have all been about her. I did one on Michael, our tenant, but it very quickly went to my sister. And the thing that I've been doing over and over and over with my sister and with Michael and probably everybody else is it's verbalized in the Tim Hayes detailed processing of your 5-step wake-up sheet, where he says, I keep repeating the idea, I cancel my need to be right and refuse to make up another image or story based on my brain content / reality to prove that I am right. In my case, right about Michael, right about my sister. And I generate these stories and the temptation to generate permutations of this story. If I get rid of one image of helplessness or whatever, or manipulation or lying or whatever I think I see the other person doing, I'll make up another one to keep the denial going and the anger justified. And then because I've had a person living in the house to whom I have to be civil and kind and understanding. That's when it all started. This guy moved in 8 months ago, and that's when I started getting tired. You told me to look at the calendar. I blamed it on COVID, but it's not COVID. It hasn't been COVID. It's been much earlier than that. Sitting on judgment, rage, misplaced. God, I've got work to do, but it's sitting right in front of me. And the thing is, I'm so excited. I feel so glad to have this out and not in my body.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Well, and you'll remember that the purpose of words, which come from, according to the Course in Miracles, the world of darkness rules, they're symbols of symbols, can't speak the truth. But the purpose is to simply deny, in, quote, words the world of darkness understands, unravel and recognize the unreality, the untruth that we're telling. And the next untruth I'm going to ask you to look at is that you ever were angry at your sister. You've never been angry with your sister. You, me, nobody has ever been angry with anyone. We're just angry.
Yeah. Okay.
And notice your focal point is assisting the young people in your world to end their addiction. And there's an old saw that says we teach best that which we most need to learn. I think it was Richard Bach in his book Illusions. So it's time to end your addiction to anger.
And it's huge.
It's a big one. I'm going to suggest, once again, I don't know if you ever watched it, or if we showed it at the intensive you were at Heartland a few years back, but watch the film. Thank you for sharing.
I did see it. Yep. I should look again, though.
So in the context of this conversation, recognizing that your drug is anger.
Yeah.
And we could probably put judgment in the same category.
Okay.
Watch it with that perspective and notice, that anger, I mean, to me, the power of this film, and actually I need to watch again too, it's been a couple of years. The power of this film is that they capture a number of people throughout the film. There's a whole group of people who are addicted to different things, sex, and that's actually the primary thing that's focused on is sex addiction, but alcohol and drugs. But the thing they capture is that when anger isn't enough to keep the pain hidden that they don't want to deal with, that's when they turn to the substance. When the internal substance of anger isn't enough of an anesthetic, that's when they turn to the external addictive substance.
Say that again, Michael.
Yes, the power of that film, and I don't know whether they knew what they were doing or it was accidental or it's because it's just so obvious in the addiction world, but in each case where one of the people in the film is getting ready to fall off the wagon, getting ready to go back to their substance of choice, they demonstrate that before they go to their substance, before they actually fall off the wagon into what the world calls their alcoholism or their addiction to pills, or their addiction to rage, or their addiction to sex, each one of them goes to anger. That's their first drug of choice. It's an internally produced drug. And then when that's not enough of an anesthetic, when they can't keep the pain and anesthetize with that, that's when they turn to a substance. So when you start, as your grandson shared with you, I know that I have to follow a routine in order not to turn to my addictive substance again. I know that I can't use ever again, and therefore I'm going to keep up the routines that I need in order to maintain my sobriety.
Yeah.
My offering is that's your challenge in regard to anger. You've got to stop being a user.
Yeah.
And you've got to devise yourself a program, and you might ask your grandson to support you in designing a program that will empower you to give up that addiction.
How would he do that?
He'll share with you what his sponsor shared with him and how you do it.
Okay.
He did it with alcohol. And, notice that the day of the wedding, when there was so much going on, you shared this with us yesterday, you said to him, well, why don't you just let it go for a day? And he's like, I can't do that. I know that to stay sober, I have to keep up my program. And so by acknowledging that I can see it opening a huge space for him on a new level to share with him that you've discovered that you have an addiction that you've been using. Maybe you've even at times turned it on him. I don't know. Maybe,
Thank God.
has that ever happened with Jacob?
No, it hasn't.
Good. Awesome. Anyway, he's gone through and designed a program with the help of a sponsor. And so I would suspect that asking your grandson to sponsor you, to support you in creating a program that will keep you free would be very powerful for him. And it would be very powerful for your whole family system.
I'll do that when I talk to him. I will.
To me, that cue that the Course in Miracles gives us is nobody can ever be tired. It's not possible.
I
But
love
carrying the burden, nobody can do. It's going to wipe out and wear out everybody.
Yeah.
And literally, ultimately, is the only cause of death that there is. If you go back and look at the scriptures, with man, death began. This is what created death. So when we can look at it at that level, a whole new level of healing happens. The purpose of pain, to make our ears grow, to point us in the direction of looking within at what do I need to embrace inside of me, not what do I need to embrace in the world. When I'm able to embrace what the world triggers in me that I've hidden from myself, I'm going to just naturally be the presence of love in the world. That's just what's going to be. No matter what the atrocity is, no matter what the crazy is, I'm just going to naturally be the presence of love for that. I won't have to work at embracing it. Whether it's the warmonger or the plight of the refugee or the, insane use of plastics. I'll just be the presence of love for that. And out of that space of love, I'll know exactly the corrective action to take to bring healing to that in the world. But until I've embraced what's in me that I've dissociated from, that becomes my guide. I substitute that via a projected construct called perception that separates me from the actual world that the Creator created for us. People, once they get past the age of 4 or 5, never visit the Creator's world, never visit the world of actuality. They're totally, completely locked into the world of perception. And you remember that lesson from the Course. What is the world? The world is false perception. It will remain no longer than the thought that gave it birth is cherished. When you no longer have use for anger, you'll touch into the thought underneath it. When you heal the thought underneath it, then you'll, having embraced that underlying energy, you'll simply be vitalized physiologically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually by the simple fact that the Creator put the breath of life in you. And that's what life is the movement of love through our cells. What moves in me that I need to embrace to return to that. So I'm excited for you. I'm excited for your family system. I'm excited that you've shared this with us so that everybody who's listening or will ever listen. In fact, I'm going to talk with Jeanie, and we'll probably put yesterday's show together with this conversation and make it one of the special shows because it's so powerful, so right on track. So thank you for your willingness.
Thanks for the guidance. It was a huge help. Yeah.
Honored deeply to have the opportunity. And in deep gratitude to Yeshua for creating the process that brings such awakening to us into the world.
I feel as if what's going to be needed now is acute vigilance, because my habit of making up another story to justify my position is just huge. I'm really good at it.
Becoming the thinker apart from the thought, the feeler apart from the feelings, the actor apart from the actions. Being able to observe your own perceptual mind and the self that is a product of your perception is the power of that is beyond comprehension.
And denial would include thinking that I'm no longer that person that can do that. And that isn't true. I like the idea that Thaddeus Goulas says that if you think you're good, remember you are the opposite. I had a dream once when Nixon, poor old Nixon, Richard Nixon, was under terrible scrutiny and flailing around. And I was very angry at him and went to sleep and had a dream that he was across a room. And I was trying to get to him to tell him that I'm just like him. It was a really amazing revelation to know that I have a Richard Nixon living in me. Whatever was dishonest in him, somehow the dream was showing me that that's my garbage too. And I would just like to be able to keep the full spectrum in mind in every interaction. Although when you're in the refugee center or something equivalent, you don't really need to do all that. But out in the world, I'm afraid I'll just be making up more stories and justifying my position and going back into my junk and getting pooped. Don't want to go there again.
So you're getting ready to go there again? Good acknowledgement for yourself.
Okay, I stand corrected.
What do you want to do?
I want to
be really detailed.
Yeah. What do I want to do?
Write a vision statement. Remember, without vision, my people perish. Write a vision statement for what exactly in detail that's going to look like.
All right. Okay.
And then, think about Nixon or plastic or any of the other political operatives that are running around the world doing what they're doing.
Right.
What I can't hold a space of active love for is my work.
That is true.
What I allow to rip me off for the presence of love in me is what I have not yet forgiven
Yeah.
from my heart.
Yep.
So ultimately, that guide that says you must forgive from your heart the wrongs of your brother, it's not a leading heart statement. It's I have to go into my unconscious and remove what I've projected into my brain's image of anyone or anything. And that takes being eternally vigilant, because it can sneak up so easily, so subtly,
Absolutely.
and be so justifiable.
Mm-hmm.
After all, isn't everybody upset about this?
Yeah.
Because nobody's ever been upset about anything. There's just upset in them. And when they give it up, then to the presence of love that brings healing to the circumstance. And it sounds like your kitten agrees.
He does. He comes around when you're talking, Michael. He comes up and he starts yakking.
We'll have a conversation with the cat. What fun.
He's a good boy. He's a very fine animal. Yes. Well, I thank you very much. I don't have much to say. It's just the ball's rolling, and it's ongoing. And I just thanks for, I feel as if I've been released from something I couldn't find my way out of.
And you might want to take ownership of that. You have released something. Now, you know, I've been released is disowning again.
Okay.
And so the propensity to disown any state of mind is probably another 77 times 70 worksheets that you'll do.
All right. I see.
Including the healed, magnificent state of mind that is the mind of Christ that is yours, in you.
Mm.
To be willing to own that is monumental as well, because we've been purposely beat down by power persons, by governments, by kings. It's an old king's thing to beat people down so that they always, no matter what, there's always a chain to yank to pull them back into slavery.
Yeah.
So while there's a challenge in owning our hate, our fear, our rage, our guilt, our grief, probably the bigger challenge is owning your magnificence and the truth about you as a created human essence called love. That might be the most challenging one for most people. So we're here to join with you and share with you in doing that next level of work. And enjoying the aliveness that goes with it. And knowing that you can do that all the way up into and through all of eternity. And make it to the New Year's Eve party in 4949 at Heartland.
Right.
So breathing with you, young lady.
Thanks, Michael.
You are more than welcome and deserving, as Dr. Tim would say.
Yes, he does.
Cool. Well, any other thoughts?
Not at the moment, thanks.
Well, I'm going to look up and watch thank you for sharing
Thank
film
you
again.
for sharing. Yeah.
And maybe if you get the chance to do that, we can talk about it a little bit more.
Yeah, I'd like to. And I did listen to the replay of yesterday. It was quite entertaining. You're a good sport being yelled at.
Go for it.
Yeah.
And there, let me just put in, it's thanks for sharing, and I put a link to the movie in the notes for today.
Good.
There is another movie called Thank You for Sharing, but this one's
thank
for
you,
sharing.
Jeanie.
Okay, thank you, sweetie.
Good going.
Thank you for
Thank you for
ferreting that out.
sharing
Is
that,
it a
Jeanie.
freebie on YouTube, any chance? Or
No, what I put in there was the IMDb title.
right?
Let me look here. Thanks for sharing. You can watch it on Max with Prime Video. More watch options. You can, if you have a Max subscription, Prime Video subscription. So it looks like it's an Amazon movie right now unless you buy it.
Well, it's also on. You can buy it or rent it on YouTube as well. So it's $3.99 for high definition.
Oh, big deal.
Rental. So awesome. Well, nice work, young lady. That's just fabulous.
Thank you so much, Michael.
All right, we appreciate you. Have a blessed one.
Thanks. You too.
All righty, it's in the plan. Well, Miss Jeanie, we're almost halfway through the show already. Do we have anybody else on the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room?
No, Yinka's with me in the chat room. There are no other hands up. If somebody presses 1, you're first in line. Otherwise, unless, Michael, you've got something else, I will start reading in the next chapter.
Let's go for it. And hi to Yinka.
Okay,
Glad you're with us.
Yeah. So we are reading out of Michael Singer's The Untethered Soul, and we're all the way to chapter 12. And it's titled, Taking Down the Walls. At some point in your growth, it starts to become quieter, and this happens quite naturally as you take a deeper seat within yourself. You then come to realize that though you have always been in there, you have been completely overwhelmed by the constant barrage of thoughts, emotions, and sensory inputs that draw on your consciousness. As you see this, it begins to dawn on you that you might actually be able to go beyond all these disturbances. The more you sit in the seat of witness, consciousness, the more you realize that since you are completely independent of what you are watching, there must be a way to break free of the magical hold that psyche has on your awareness. There must be a way out. The inner breakthrough to complete freedom is traditionally depicted by the overused and generally misunderstood term enlightenment. The problem is that our views of enlightenment are either based upon our personal experiences or upon our limited conceptual understanding. Since most people have never had experiences in this realm, the state of enlightenment is either scoffed at completely or viewed as the ultimate mystical state accessible to almost no one. It's safe to say that the only thing most people know for sure about enlightenment is that they are not there. However, with the understanding that thoughts, emotions, and sensory objects are simply passing before your consciousness, it becomes reasonable to question whether your sense of awareness need be limited to this experience. What if consciousness were to remove its focus from your personal set of thoughts, your personal set of emotions, and your limited sensory input? Would you become untethered from the bonds of the personal self and be set free to explore beyond? And how exactly did consciousness become bound to the personal self to begin with? The problem with even attempting to consider these questions is that they call for a discussion of what exists beyond the confines of the mind. Obviously, that discussion is very difficult to have from within the mental structure we are so accustomed to using. For this reason, we will begin exploring the untethered state through the use of an allegory, much like Plato used dialogue to tell his allegory of the cave in 360 BC. We will use a short story to tell our allegory of a very special house. Imagine you found yourself in the midst of an open field where the sun was always shining. It was a beautiful place of green, great light, and great openness. It was so beautiful that you decided you wanted to live there, the land. And right in the middle of the enormous field, you began personally designing and building the house of your dreams. You put down a solid foundation because you wanted the house to be very strong and to last a long time. You built the house out of concrete blocks so that you wouldn't have any problems with decaying or leaking. To make the house ecologically sound, you decided to put in very few windows and build a roof with lots of overhang. After you put in the windows and the house was complete, you realized that a lot of heat still came in. So you installed high-quality protective shutters that not only reflected sunlight and heat back to the outside, but also could be locked down for security purposes. It was a very large house that could store enough supplies to allow for complete self-sufficiency. You even built separate quarters for a quiet acquaintance who would keep the house clean and leave you to be in solitude. And solitude it would be because your romantic quest included a commitment to no phones, radios, televisions, or internet connections. Your house was finally finished and you were very excited to be living out there. You loved the openness of the fields and all the light and the beauty of nature, but most of all, you were enamored with the house. You had put your heart and soul into every aspect of the design, and it showed. It was truly you. In fact, over time, between your infatuation with the house and your growing discomfort with all the strange sights and sounds outside, you started spending more time indoors. Then that you realized that with the shutters and the doors fully locked down, the house actually began to feel like a fortress. And this was just fine with you. Being a city person, it was pretty scary living so far out of touch in total isolation. But you were committed to making it on your own. So you gradually became accustomed to living safely within the confines of your house. You happily went about your business of reading and writing as you had always longed to do. It was actually quite comfortable in there since it was fully climate controlled and you had been wise enough to install a modern full spectrum lighting system. Ironically, you found your house so comfortable, enjoyable, and safe, you stopped thinking about the outside altogether. After all, the inside was familiar, predictable, and within the realm of your control. The outside was unknown, unpredictable, and completely out of your control. Your sense of inner sanctum was supported by the fact that when the shutters and blinds were locked in place, they blended like paintings on the wall, and you never even considered risking going outside to unlock them. They were so well made that when the lights were turned off, it was absolutely pitch black, day or night. But since you were accustomed to never turning off the lights, you didn't notice this until they started burning out. It was only then that you realized your predicament. No one had left you replacement bulbs compatible with the new system. This meant that once the final light failed, you were left to find your way around the house in absolute darkness. From that point forward, the only light you had came from the few candles that you kept for emergencies. But there were very few of these, so you conserved them well. Being a person who loved light, this was very difficult for you. Yet it was not difficult enough to force you to overcome the fears that you had developed about leaving the safety of your house. Eventually, the stress of living in this darkness took its toll on your health, both physically and mentally. With time, the very memory of the beautiful sunlit field began to fade from your mind, never to return again. You became very concerned about keeping the house lit. The only light you knew about was the light that you created in the darkness with your precious candles. It became pretty lonely in there. You were cut off from everything, and the only comfort you felt was the sense of protection your house afforded you. You were no longer aware of exactly what you were afraid of. You were just aware of always being scared and uncomfortable. It was all you could do to try to hold yourself together. You even stopped reading and writing because of the lack of light. It was dark, and you too were falling into darkness. Then one day, the housekeeper, who shared your overwhelming need to stay in the safety of the house, called you down to the storage cellar. You were amazed by what you saw. A full supply of emergency flashlights had been found that could be powered simply by shaking them. Your housekeeper had already set some up, and the cellar was fully radiant. This was a true turning point in your life. You set about your business of trying to create light and beauty and happiness within the confines of your house. You decorated each room and worked together to keep the light shining brightly until you went to sleep. You started reading and writing again. It turned out that your housemate loved reading your writings. In fact, it was not just the artificial lights that were lighting the house. The ember of love had begun to glow in both of your hearts. Imagine the light you could create together instead of apart. You began spending all of your time with each other, and you even staged a marriage ceremony. It was so beautiful as you vowed to take care of each other and bring love and light into your home. Compared to the darkness in which you had been living, this was heaven. One day you came across a book in your library. It interested you because it talked about the natural radiant light that exists outside. It even spoke of bathing in that light, but it was talking about more light than you could ever imagine, without anyone having to do anything to create it. This was confusing to you. After all, the only light you knew about was the artificial light from candles and flashlights. How could you make that much light and keep it going? You didn't have a clue what this book was talking about because you could only view things in relation to the way you were living. You were living inside the house, and therefore you were living inside of darkness. All the light that you could experience was limited to what you could create within the house. You had lived there for so long that all your hopes, dreams, philosophies, and beliefs were founded upon being inside that dark house. Your whole world was about keeping together the life you had managed to build for yourself within the confines of the house. When you continued reading this seemingly mystical book, it spoke of what it was like to actually walk around in the natural light. It seemed to be describing a self-luminous, omnipresent light that shines everywhere all at once. It was a light that falls on everything constantly and evenly. Though you had no frame of reference for understanding this, it touched something deep inside of you. The book then discussed actually going outside. That is, going beyond the walls of the world that you had created for yourself. In fact, it said that while you are attached and enamored with the world you created to avoid darkness, you will never know the abundance of natural light that is beyond the confines of your house. How will you ever go outside when you are so dependent upon what you have built inside? The analogy of life inside this house is a perfect fit for our predicament. Our consciousness, our awareness of being, is living deep inside of us in an artificially sealed-off area that is absolute. It has 4 walls, a floor, a roof. It's so solid that not one ray of natural light comes in. The only light we get is what we manage to create for ourselves. If we don't create good situations for ourselves, there's darkness. So we are very busy decorating daily. We do this by trying to bring things in there with us, hoping to create at least a little light in the house of our own making, where we have sealed ourselves off. That is the visual. You are inside a house totally sealed off from natural light, and the house is sitting in the middle of an open field full of brilliant light. But what is your house made of? What are your walls made of? How can they seal off all that light and keep you locked inside? Your house is made of your thoughts and emotions. The walls are made of your psyche. That's what that house is. It is all your past experiences, all your thoughts and emotions, all the concepts, views, opinions, beliefs, hopes, dreams that you have collected around yourself. You hold them in place on all sides, including above and below you. You have pulled together in your mind a specific set of thoughts and emotions, and then you have woven them together into a conceptual world in which you live. This mental structure completely blocks you from whatever natural light is on the outside of its walls. You have walls of thoughts thick enough and closed enough to where nothing but darkness is inside that structure. You are so entranced with paying attention to your thoughts and emotions that you never go beyond the borders they create. If you want to see how restrictive your walls are, just start walking toward them. Let's say you have an emotional fear of heights. When you were young, you fell off a ladder and the impression stayed with you. That is one of your walls. If you doubt that it's a wall, let's see you walk through it. Let's say something happens that activates these old feelings of fear and you decide to walk right through them. The closer you get, the more you will have the urge to pull back. That which you collected from your past forms a boundary that you intuitively want to avoid. That's natural. That's what we do with walls. We avoid running into them. But because you avoid running into them, they lock you inside their perimeter. They become your prison because they are the boundaries of your awareness. Because you are not willing to approach them, you cannot see what is beyond them. And I can stop there or I can keep reading. Hello, Michael.
Have my mute button on. It's a good analogy. Why don't we go ahead and finish it off?
Okay. So when you approach
unless we have
the
somebody in the phone
area,
queue with a hand up.
Oh, nobody has a hand up.
Let's go for it.
And I've only got pages anyway. So when you approach the barrier area of your thoughts and emotions, it feels like going into an abyss. You don't want to go near that place, but you can go there. And if you want to get out, you will go there. Eventually, you will realize that darkness is not what's really there. What is really there are the walls that are blocking the infinite light. When you're looking for light, that is a crucial distinction. If you see a wall and it's protecting you from unending darkness, you will not want to go there. But if you see a wall that is blocking the light, you will want to go there in order to remove the wall. It is often said that you must go through the darkest night in order to get to the infinite light. This is because what we call darkness is really the blockage of light. You must go past these walls. It's not really difficult to get past the walls. Time and again, every day, the natural flow of life collides within our walls and tries to tear them down. But time and again, we defend them. You must realize that when you defend yourself, you are really defending the walls. There is nothing else to defend in there. There is just your awareness of being and the limited house that you built to live in. What you are defending is the house you built to protect yourself. You are hiding inside. If something happens to challenge the walls of your psyche, you get highly defensive. You have built a self-concept, moved inside, and now you defend the home with all you have. But what creates the inner home other than the walls of your thoughts? When you say, I'm a woman and I'm 45 years old, I'm married to Joe and I graduated from this school. Those are thoughts. The actual situations don't exist in there with you except in the form of thoughts that you cling to. Another, but I was a cheerleader. I was president of my senior class. Well, that was 30 years ago. These situations don't exist anymore, but they exist inside of you, and they form the walls in which you live. What if somebody challenges your self-concept and breaks a little hole in it? What if somebody manages to shake one of those foundational thoughts that the house of your psyche is built upon? Imagine if someone told you when you were 20 years old, wait a minute, those are not your parents. You were adopted. Didn't they ever tell you? You would adamantly deny it until they showed you the documents. It would shake you up with your whole being, inner being. Just one wrong thought and the structure starts to crumble. Tremendous fear and turmoil can open up inside of you simply because something is not the way you thought it was. It shakes you to the core of your being because it challenges the house of thoughts in which you dwell. To fix this, you start in with your rationalizations. I knew they were really nice. They were just like my real parents would have been. Imagine them adopting someone like me and bringing me up just like their own. They were even more special than I thought they were. You patched that hole up very well, and that's what we do with our walls. We keep them solid. Nothing is allowed to shake those walls. Notice you patched the cracking wall with your thoughts. You patched with thoughts that which is made of thoughts, okay? Symbols of symbols. That's what we do, just like the people who fearfully locked themselves inside the dark house in the middle of a sunlit field and then struggled to create some kind of light. We work hard to build a world within the confines of our inner walls that is better than the inner darkness. We decorate our walls with the memories of our past experiences, with the dreams of our future. In other words, we decorate them with thoughts. But just as the people in the house had the potential to step outside of their own self-made artificial world into the beauty of the natural light, you can step outside your house of thoughts into the unlimited. Your awareness can expand to encompass vast space instead of limited space in which you dwell. Then, when you look back at it, at that little house you built, you'll wonder why you were ever in there. That is your journey out. True freedom is very close. It's just on the other side of your walls. Enlightenment is a very special thing. But in truth, one should not focus on it. Focus instead on the walls of your own making that are blocking the light. Of what purpose is it to build walls that block the light and then strive for enlightenment? You can get out simply by letting everyday life take down the walls that you hold around yourself. You simply don't participate in supporting, maintaining, and defending your fortress. Imagine your house of thoughts standing in the middle of an ocean of light from 1 trillion stars. Imagine your awareness trapped inside the darkness of that house, struggling daily to live off the artificial light of your limited experience. Now imagine the walls crumbling down and the effortless release of consciousness expanding into the brilliance of what is and always was. Now give that experience a name: enlightenment.
Sweet. Good analogy, good way to look at it. That so parallels the lesson in the Course in Miracles, what is the world? You know, if we take a look at that lesson, the world is false perception. Walls. It is born of error. It has not left its source. It will remain no longer than the thought that gave it birth is cherished. When the thought of separation has been changed to one of true forgiveness, the world will be seen in quite another light, one which leads to truth, where all the world must disappear and its errors vanish. Now its source is gone, and its effects are gone too. So the Course uses the word world in two different ways. It uses the word to represent the actuality. I wish when they had edited the Course that they had used a capital W for the world that the Creator created, and then a lowercase w for the world that's going on, the one that he's using the analogy for, that happens in our minds. So whatever the walls are that we build with our thoughts, you know, from the terrible experiences or from the power person messages, whatever it is, literally it becomes the confines in which we live. And once you realize that that world is self-created, there is an efficient, effective, systematic way, and you've got to be careful because the mind will tend to trick you right back into that old world, to remove the walls and go back to our full-blown relationship with love. that lesson in the Course, What is the World, goes on to say the world was made as an attack on God. When you realize that God is love, every thought that's based in something other than love, it's an attack. It's a way of covering up, putting up a set of walls to block out the love, and creating a construct in the mind that is the lowercase w world. So this particular lesson, the Course says, this world, lowercase, symbolizes fear. And what is fear but love's absence? I mean, it's right. His analogy is right down the line. We've come in from out of the light. We constructed walls that block and put us in darkness. And then, of course, the exciting ideas that create the light in that world of darkness are the ideas, false as they are, that have me believe that my judgment is right. That brings light into the situation, to the ego, to the non-being mind. And it's an attack on the true source of light. So this lowercase world, the lesson goes on to say, was meant to be a place where love could not enter, and we could be apart from the Creator. Here was perception born, for knowledge could not cause such insane thoughts. Being willing, able, and doing the work of giving up perception is huge. And by analogy, the story that Michael's telling in his book, it's those thought walls, the mind energy of judgment that blocks out light and then brings in pseudo light, artificial light, and that would be also the hit of dopamine that we get when we achieve a goal. You know, people can become attached to negative goals because each time you achieve a goal, there's this hit of what's been called our happy powder of dopamine. Oh, accomplishment, even negative accomplishment. So knowledge could not cause such insane thoughts, but eyes deceive and ears hear falsely. Now mistakes become quite possible, for certainty has gone. The mechanisms of illusion have been born instead. And now they go to find what has been given them to seek. Their aim is to fulfill the purpose the world was made to witness and make real. So as you stand back and observe your own mind and watch what your world, your self-constructed world, is witnessing to, if it's witnessing to something based in some form of hostility or fear, something that creates contraction, constriction, you know, a proper translation of the word heaven from the ancient Aramaic scriptures is expansion. The kingdom of expansion is within. It's pushing back the walls. So this whole lowercase w world was made to witness and make something real. What was it made to witness? That our thoughts are real. That our thoughts based in hostility or fear can do something. So the lesson goes on to say, they see in its illusions, it being the lowercase w world, but a solid base where truth exists, upheld apart from lies. Yet everything they report is but illusion, which is kept apart from truth. As sight was made to lead away from truth, it can be redirected. Sounds become the call for love, and all perception can be given a new purpose. And so the truth of who we are has the ability to see. Follow the light shown by that mind. Hear that voice alone in all that speaks to you. And let that voice, the voice of actuality, the voice that is the presence of love, bring you peace and certainty which you've thrown away. But the serenity, the peace, and the certainty have been preserved for you. The lesson goes on to say, let us not rest content until the world has joined our changed perception. Let us not be satisfied until forgiveness has been made complete. Let us not attempt to change our function. So this process of forgiveness redeems us from this world of false perception. And when you see that through the mind of love in you, then we can be restored to the truth of who we are. And who are we really? We literally are made of that light, of that stuff called love. But if we tell ourselves a story long enough, that something outside of us is the cause of the walls we have built, and we can come to believe that our self-limiting experiences are truly forced on us by someone else. And the restoration to truth is what this work is all about. And so we've got about 5 minutes left, sweetie, which would be a perfect time frame for one quick conversation. So if you're out there in listener land, our call-in number, if you're on one of those stations where we can't see you, is 563-999-3581. If you call that number, you'll be listening to the show directly. And if you have a question or thought for us, push 1, raise a hand in the control panel, we'll be having a conversation. How can we support you? What's on your mind? 563-999-3581. Ms. Jeanie, do we have anything happening in the chat room or anything happening in the phone queue?
No, it's all quiet, and we're actually down to 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Well, in that case, let's just let everybody know that we're contemplating a 10-week intuitive development Zoom intensive. If you're interested in that, you could drop Jeanie a note. Her email is jeanie@whyagain.org. And if you drop her that email, make sure to leave your phone number and your name. And as we see enough people coming together to schedule that, we'll put it on the schedule and do a 10-week online Zoom intensive. Of course, that will include personal code evaluations. It will include the private Facebook group food program, Fresh and Raw food program, as well as the Chill app for recipes for awesome, wondrous, fresh and raw food that can help to vitalize and strengthen people in making this journey back to wholeness. So we appreciate you joining us. We hold the space so you have the best year yet of your eternal life. Again, Ms. Susan, thank you for your willingness to be so vulnerable and to